Welcome to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we equipped you to more effectively lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. Each week, we help you sharpen your leadership acumen by cracking open the playbooks of dynamic leaders who are doing big things in their professional endeavors. And now your host, leadership tactics and organizational development expert, Karen Farrell-Rhodes.
Hello, my superstars. This is Karen, and welcome to another episode of the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast. Now, as you know, for this month, doing a special series that are featuring chief technology officers or technology leaders in a variety of companies. And we're just over the moon to have on today's show our guest, Mr. Sunil Padiyar, who is the chief technology officer at Trintech. And Trintech is an award-winning cloud-based software company that automates reconciliation and financial close processes. In other words, they are chief financial officers and controllers' heroes, to say the least. But I'm going to let Sunil in just a moment tell us a little bit more about what they do. But before we do that, we want to welcome him to the show. So welcome, Sunil.
Thank you, Karen. Happy to be on the show.
Oh, we're just so honored to have you. And as you know, one technology is huge over no matter what industry you touch. And so this is one reason why we really wanted to feature those leaders who are really trying to help their companies going to think through approaches to help their businesses thrive. So we're super pleased to have you on the show. But before we get started, and peeling back the layer of the onion of what you do day to day, we always love to get a sneak peek into what you do outside of work. So would you mind just sharing how you love spending your time and what you do where you're not clocking in?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, this is a recent passion of mine, and it has to do with AI. And I mean, everyone is doing. So I said, you know what? My daughter sings. She's a singer. She became a professional singer. She is in famous restaurants and, places in Scottsdale, Arizona. I said, you know what? I'm going to create music. And I started doing that.
Oh,
And about 3 weeks back, I created a few tracks. I put it out there, not under my direct name, created a screen name, put it out there. And I got 70,000 views and 1,100 subscribers in just 3 weeks. That shows you the power of AI, right? Because many people are saying, is AI real? Well, I'm going to tell you it's real. Even in a hobby, look at how much further you can advance yourself, right?
That's right. Well, I need to get your autograph right now because you are glowing up and you're going to say Karen Rhodes who? I don't know that. Underling anymore. Congratulations. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, if that's not an encouragement for others to dip their toe in the water of AI if they're afraid of it, I don't know what is. So definitely that's fantastic. Well, Sunil, thank you for sharing that. And I know I did not do justice what Trintech does. So would you mind giving our listeners just a little bit more information about what you all do and how you help serve your clients?
Well, I think you did a pretty good job. You said Trintech is the best friend of the office of the CFO. And you are right. Because when the office of the CFO wants to close their books, right, they got to make the numbers all balance out. And Trintech comes into the picture, right? So we do high volume transaction matching, automating and managing, balance sheet reconciliations, intercompany accounting, journal entries, close management, all the things that give you a headache. A normal person would by now say, oh, wow, right. So Trintech, provides solutions. And, if you look at almost any Fortune 500 company, they use Trintech. So we got over 4,200 companies worldwide that use Trintech to do, these kinds of various things that have to do with closing the books.
Gotcha. So the Fortune and the larger companies use it. Is this also a product for SMBs as well, or are you mostly enterprise level and larger?
We have there's multiple products that we have. We have a product called Cadency, the Cadency, which applies to the the enterprises, Fortune 500 companies, and so forth. Then we have a product called ADRA, which is more SMB, commercial, market oriented. Smaller companies up to 1 billion transactions. That sounds like a lot, but these days, almost every transaction is electronic, right? So ADRA handles that. And then we have Frontier and Accurate and Reconnect. We have a bunch of products, that target different markets. They're highly specialized, targeting, financial institutions and, retail and so on and so forth. So we have a comprehensive suite of applications that do the same things, but across multiple verticals.
Boy, have we come a long way, Sunil, from running enterprise level companies on Excel. Let me just say that.
Well, some still do.
Friends still do it, right?
You just have thousands of people doing it, but they're still doing it with Excel.
When you have great software like what you all provide, or software solutions like what you all provide, that's amazing. Now, as Chief Technology Officer, am I correct to assume that you're overseeing the software development and improvements and of the product offerings that you all have? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my job. Besides coming up with, innovations and cool technologies and so forth, which is what you think most CTOs do. That's part of my responsibility.
Mhm.
But the other part of my responsibility is to build these products, quality control it, quality assurance it, and then ship it, and then provide upgrades, provide patches. All of those fall under my domain.
Wow. And if you don't mind me asking, how large is your team?
My team is probably, I'm going to say, about 150 to 175 people.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, they includes contractors and so forth.
Yeah.
Everybody has contractor workforce, right? So
Of course.
that's probably about the size of my org.
Amazing. Well, you know what? You're just going to have to join my other podcast. We have a second podcast called Blended Workforces at Work, where we talk about companies that use both FTEs and contractors to get work done.
Well, yes.
So we're just going to have to pop you on that one. No, I totally get it. I totally understand. So I'm curious, Sunil, how, as a CTO, do you balance the needs of what customers want? Like having most of my career in technology, it never fails that customers, you have a fantastic offering, and then customers want some sort of customizations that they say will make, their world nirvana, that they'll love it. But as you are continuously making improvements and development and leading your team to do that, I'm sure you have to strike a decent balance between taking customer feedback and then prioritizing what you can and cannot be infused into your current solutions based on demand and profitability and feasibility. So I'd love to hear a little bit on how you as a leader kind of think through balancing the needs of the customer with the needs of your teams.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because, we call it capacity, right? This is people have demand, right? I mean,
Yeah.
every tech company I can tell you has more features and functions, demand for more features and functions than they have the capacity to deliver, right? So, people such as me, I've come up with methodologies, where you say, okay, here is the capacity, here is the feature nominations. Yeah, those are the words that we use. That all the features in the universe that should go into the product, right? And this is how we prioritize, and then we apply, dimensions like, we need to have innovation. We need to have features and functions that are requested by customers. We need to pay back technical debt, right? So there are standard formulas. People say you should at least spend 20 to 30% of your capacity on innovation, 20 to 30% on this and that. So there are those measures that you can apply, right? But to customers that really want to customize, I think, the thought process that I have is make the software easy to customize so they can do it. We don't have to do it. right? So we allow our software to be configured, right? And the configurations, can vary customer by customer. To a large extent, they can do things that the product wasn't built to do by customizing it themselves.
Oh, interesting. And if they don't, do you all have consultants that can go in and help them for an extra price, right? Have it go in and help them customize, or are they totally left on their own?
Well, it depends on the size of the company, right? In the beginning, we said, okay, enterprises, they always want a custom.
Always.
Always. In fact, there is no out-of-the-box software that fits their needs. So, the theory is, in that case is, you implement a solution that checks off 80% of your needs, and then the 20% you customize over a period of time, So, because people want to get going with the software, right? So that's
Right.
what we philosophically try and do, is to say, how fast can we make our software do 93% of the tasks that you do, and the remaining 7% over a period of time you can customize, right? So that's in the higher end of the market. In the lower end of the market, ADRA, for example, which is for the SMBs, works right out of the box because it's built generically to serve all the needs. Those are more finite than the needs in the enterprise side, which are in a pretty large list.
And what is your leadership philosophy for building high-performing teams in the technical space? Because I'm sure you probably have different roles, people with different specialties, but your workforce has to be be compiled in a way that it runs efficiently, and so that you're all going in the same direction in the North Star. And I'm sure you're probably partnering with other departments within the company, like your, sales and, you name it out there. As a chief technology officer, how do you think about leading that coordination across functions, across your team and departments?
Yeah. So, it used to be a very difficult thing, just, 10 or 20 years back. But now almost everything, like, for example, we build what's, as SaaS applications, right? Be cloud SaaS applications. So you look at the cloud providers, they have figured out every aspect of technology that a good application needs. It's not a mystery anymore, right? To go build a good, scalable cloud application, it's not a mystery. So knowing that is the first thing that you want to do, is to say, what's a great application? And then, as it happens oftentimes, not all applications are great because they were built a dozen years back, and some of those things are still in the past, which we call tech debt, right? That's exactly what we call it. And some people call it tech wealth. You've got to add tech wealth rather than reduce tech debt. I've seen that kind of terminology be used. So the first thing that you got to do is to have a vision of what the application should be. Secondly, you got to do is to say, hey, there is no way you're going to reach there overnight. We got to reach there in a series of evolutionary steps. When all counted together, become a revolution, right?
Right.
So that's how we do it. We look at each of the applications. We say, what should be the best state of the application? And then we say, to your point where you said, how do you use the capacity? Part of that is paying back pet and building the future architecture, which makes it a great application, right? So it's a continuous balancing act. You know where you really want to be, but you're moving in the right direction.
Gotcha. No, that makes a ton of sense. And what is one piece of advice that you would give those that are maybe 1 to 2 steps away from being considered to being a chief technology officer for their company? What is the 1 or 2 pieces of advice that you can give them to think about being the CXO, or the topmost leader of a technology organization, and preparing themselves, I should say, for that kind of role?
I think one of the things that I found is people in various stages of their career, have desire to go innovate rapidly. What you really have to understand is that your customers are not ready. What you have to do is keep your customer needs in mind when you innovate, right? Which is why there is the saying that Rome wasn't built in a day.
That's right.
But it didn't take, 500 years, right? So you need to balance your ambition to be at the leading edge of technology with the realization that your customers do not have the capacity or the willingness or the capability to absorb those leading edge technologies, which often are bleeding edge, right?
Right.
I think that people, CTOs or the people that want to be CTOs are not quite yet ready to be CTOs, struggle with this. So if you get this, it's going to get noticed. Executives notice it, customers notice it, and that's how you become a CTO, by picking that kind of a path.
Oh gosh, that was a nugget if I've never ever heard one. That was fantastic. What is an example of how you try to stay on top of technologies? I know you probably, there's articles that you read, conferences you attend, or other ways, forums, communities that you're a member of to stay on top of trends. Can you give me an example on one way one thing that you do to try to stay ahead? Because technology changes at a nanosecond, I've found.
What's interesting is what you just said. Used to be the way it was done. Let me elaborate. So you said you read technical papers, you attend conferences, you keep up on top, you are in these discussion groups. It has changed now. You know why? Now it no longer is that. It's like you have AI assistants, right? That keep on top of all this, right?
You do.
When ChatGPT came or when Claude, Claude's my favorites.
Yeah, I love
When it
Claude.
first came, they were not connected to the outside world. Now they are connected.
I
Sit back
know.
and yourself. So now you no longer have to go into 57 different discussion threads, follow up on stuff. All you have to do is go to Claude and say, hey,
What's
I'm
going on?
struggling with this. Tell me what's going on here. And when
That's
you don't like the response, guide Claude in a way where Claude creates the response for you, right?
You does.
So it has changed. So what I'm saying, it's become easier is my point, is that, in this newer world, I think you stay on top of all of these AI tools.
Yeah.
And if you're on top of all of those AI tools, they will do a really stellar job of keeping you up to date as a CTO.
I agree. Yes, you're so right. And Claude is one of my favorites, which brings us to what I wanted to get a little bit deeper to as well as AI. You and I were joking in our pre-discussion around, we could probably talk for years about this, but from your perspective, I'm curious because everybody's started an AI company right now. There are literally, thousands and thousands, from maybe millions out there. But where do you think the use of AI is going to evolve maybe in the next 12 to 18 months? Because quite honestly, it's been around for quite a bit, but it's been in today's nomenclature where everybody's talking about it probably in the last, couple years or so. Where do you think it's going to probably go in the next, 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, so
Or how we use
there was AI all the time, right? But something changed, right? ChatGPT came and everything changed.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to say, there is a distinction now between the old AI and the new AI.
That's a good point.
The new AI is really different. I mean, we weren't going to say, if ChatGPT had not come out and it had not happened, we would still be talking old AI, which was very different than the Claude and, GPT-4 only and GPT-5 that's coming up. And, all of those, have, changed the way that we talk about AI, right? So got to go back to your question. I got lost in these thoughts of different.
Let's go where you like.
Now, I think that to me, what's happening in the next 16 and 18 months is that AI is trying to find a place inside existing applications, which is a big struggle. And there are all these startups that are building the same application from the ground, right? I mean, take, for example, the industry that Trintech is in, which is transactions, billions of them, balanced books.
Yes.
And we have a particular way of doing it. And this particular way of doing it was built over the last dozen years, right? Using, frameworks and technologies that have been very popular. All of a sudden, AI comes, this new AI is saying, I might be able to take all these billion transactions and balance the books without the need for you to be in the middle.
Right.
So this is where it's going on, right? So corporate applications like us are struggling because we are looking at all these workflows and approvals and drop downs and, widgets that we built, right? And then we're saying we want to change it. We want to make it faster.
Yeah.
But then that's not that easy. We have people following this process. There's hundreds of people that are using our applications. So we struggle to make these changes, which is why you're not seeing an immediate benefit, right? So over the next 18 months, major parts of the application are going to get the benefit of AI. You're going to see things speeding up, ROI increase, tasks get done faster, right? But in the 18 months, you're also going to see a new breed of applications that are going to come, which are written completely with a different mindset, that look at the same problem with a completely different mindset. That's why I think the next 18 months are going to be a very, very interesting period. As the old world transitions into something new.
I so agree with that. And I'm excited to see what happens there. But there's two sides of that coin, I think. I think there, to your point, there's the capacity and capability of being able to do so, and then also customer readiness, right? So I think you're going to find a lot of companies, they're going to have to handhold their customers to trust these new innovations, as well, especially when it comes to what you all do in finances. Because when you're talking about reconciliation and people,
remember that too, right?
Yeah.
You just can't let moves in a regulated industry.
Exactly. So there's definitely some dynamics for the industry that you serve. I mean, Trintech serves. So I can definitely see that. And I'm just curious, Sunil, do you think your team members are a little bit nervous about how AI is going to impact their jobs in the near future?
Those that are on top of AI, that are really using those AI tools to make themselves more productive, I'm not afraid. They're loving it. They're loving it because all the mundane, boring stuff that they used to do before, their assistant does it. Like myself. I mean, I'm a heavy user of AI, right?
Right.
But those people that are not come up to speed, not using all these AI tools that are available, not kept on top of it, are the ones that are worried.
Yes.
Because they see somebody else doing all of those things that they're still cranking out the old way, and they're doing it fast. They're doing it efficiently, and they're sitting there saying, I think it's going to affect me. Yeah, every right to say that because I'm going to fall down, right? It's everyone had equal opportunity, right? You just can take that opportunity.
But it takes them to also want to have the desire to up-level their skill sets in AI. And to your point, those who do will probably naturally find a role. Their role may not look what it is today, but it is their adeptness in helping to use AI to, do X project or whatever it is that you're needing them to do. They'll have the skills to be able to do it. But those who are ignoring it, fortunately, might be left behind.
It's kind of like when the internet came out, right? I mean, we used to write what we call client-server applications, right?
Yeah, sorry.
I tell you, it was a whole bunch of people that said, no, I'm going to do this.
Yes.
And they're still doing it, because there's still some application. So, but they were left behind, right? So, when new technology trends happen, when I'm going to say 93% of the world, 99 maybe didn't see ChatGPT coming, right?
Yeah.
They were all shocked, right? So when there were few of them said, oh, I'm going to use this. I'm going to get behind it. And so several people said, I'm just going to watch it from the outside.
That's right.
Right? That's what happened with when internet came too. So you want to be on the right side, meaning behind the technology driving change, not be driven over by that change.
Exactly. No, totally, exactly. And so I'm also just curious, Sunil, because you have a huge responsibility at your company. I don't want to downplay that in any way, shape, or form. So I'm just curious, what does it take for you to lead at the top of your game? Like, what needs to be in place to make sure that Sunil is, going 100% and feeling good and taking care of both work and self?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that you want to do is, at least in my leadership, I surround myself with people, who really want to change the world. I mean, this is not lip service, We want to make the job fun, right? So when we come in here, right? We have the unique opportunity, unlike many other people, right, to come in and do exciting things, that we have fun doing it, like playing video games, right? We are
Right.
producing code and we are doing this stuff that's going to make, change users' lives, right?
Right.
So to us, up to many of us, and myself included, I look upon this as, having fun, right? Coming to work and having fun.
Right.
There's a part where you got to deal with other real team members and budgets and, expenses. And, we don't like it as much, but for
But
the
it's
most part,
necessary evil.
our job is fun, right? So that's the
Right.
kind of mentality that I want to try and build inside my workforce is people, that look upon their daily day at work as fun, as one of fun and excitement.
Love that. I love that. That's awesome. Well, as I had mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we could talk forever. And I look, and it's almost time to close out. But we cannot let you go before we're able to ask you our signature question of all of our guests. And as you know, I wrote a book on leadership execution, and it came out of doing research on some of the best practices there. And there's 7 buckets that came out of the research that we write about in the book. And so you were so kind enough to share that leading with intellectual horsepower really resonated with you. And for my new listeners out there, intellectual horsepower is all about your ability to use your areas of expertise to what I call peek around corners in order to spot trends or connect dots or identify new areas of opportunity that may not have come to the minds of others yet. It's all about giving additional value to the teams that you're working with or whoever you're interacting with. So Sunil, curious minds want to know, why did intellectual horsepower really resonate with you?
Because intellectual horsepower lets you create amazing things, right? Things that are very cool. Take ChatGPT, for instance, right? Whoever sat behind it, was creating something magnificent, right? That, that captured the imagination of the humankind. I mean, fastest growing application and what have you, right? And look at all what it unleashed, right? It's unleashed, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, ability to create music, ability to mix Bollywood with Latin beats and country, right?
Yeah.
Who could have ever thought of doing that, right? AI enables you to do that, right?
Right.
So that's the power of intellectual, horsepower, is the ability to do these things. It's not just technology and trends, right? You can look at market dynamics. You can look at, you can apply your intellectual curiosity and horsepower to many, many areas in life to become successful.
Correct.
Right? Everything else follows.
It sure does. And I think it's the key to opening the doors, to your point, innovation, new opportunity, and especially in ways that will, positively impact the communities in which we all live. And
That's exactly
I love
nice.
it. Yeah, that is amazing. All right. Well, as we're about ready to close, Sunil, we're going to have information about you in our show notes. We'll have bios, links, resources, all kinds of good things for our listeners. But I love to always give space for our guests to share on the podcast where folks can find you in the company. So would you mind sharing that information, please?
Yeah, where people can find me on the company.
Where they can find you, maybe on LinkedIn.
Clearly I'm on LinkedIn,
Okay.
easily accessible because LinkedIn is easily accessible.
It does.
And I'm on our company's website, in the leadership page, where, my contact information is listed.
Okay. And what is the company website again?
Trintech.com.
Okay. Wonderful. That's where we wanted to know. So listeners, you can look up trintech.com, take a look at the fantastic things they are doing with their software and how they're helping businesses of all sizes really rein in their financial transactions and operate more efficiently. They are key partners in companies doing so. And you heard how many companies have learned their magic and are working with them. So don't get left behind. And so thank you again, Sunil, for the gift of your time. We really appreciate you sharing your thoughts on leadership and how you think as a CTO and some of the dynamics that are going on in the world of AI today.
Thank you.
This was my true pleasure, and I really enjoyed myself.
As you
Oh,
said in the beginning of the call.
I know you're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And thank you to listeners for the gift of your time as well. As I always like to say, that, there are literally millions of podcasts out there, and we do not take your patronage lightly at all. All that we ask is that you please continue to like and subscribe all of our episodes and just share with just one friend, your best friend, because by doing so, that will enable all of us to better learn how to lead at the top of our games. Thanks a ton again, and see you next week. Take care. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we help you lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at leadyourgamepodcast.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand project or contract basis. Huge thanks to our production and editing team for a job well done. Goodbye for now.